Girls hockey has grown tremendously. There are more girls playing than ever before, more female coaches, more opportunities, more visibility. And that's incredible. But despite all that progress, many girls are still hearing the same messages female athletes have heard for generations. Sometimes directly, sometimes subtly, sometimes so often that we stop noticing them. Messages about how they're supposed to look, how they're supposed to act, how much space they're allowed to take up, how competitive they're allowed to be. And those messages don't just affect hockey, they affect confidence, leadership, risk taking, and identity. So today, let's talk about what girls hockey still gets wrong in the messages we continue to send female athletes. Many girls grow up learning something boys rarely hear: be nice, be polite, don't upset people, don't make anyone uncomfortable, don't be bossy, don't be too much. Then they enter sports, and suddenly we ask them to lead, compete, demand the puck, take charge, speak up. But those lessons often conflict because leadership requires things girls are often discouraged from practicing: assertiveness, taking up space, and advocating for themselves. The result? Girls often learn to shrink themselves. Many girls aren't lacking leadership ability. They're managing years of conditioning that taught them leadership comes with social consequences. Girls deserve space to be competitive, vocal, emotional, passionate, and leaders without being labeled negatively for it. Listen closely to how adults talk to young athletes. Girls often hear, good job listening, good job being respectful, good job behaving. Boys often hear, great effort, nice play, way to attack, way to compete. Now, obviously, this isn't always true, but it happens often enough to matter. Girls become very good at being careful, being correct, and avoiding mistakes, instead of experimenting, taking risks, and failing publicly. And hockey doesn't reward caution. Hockey rewards courage, the willingness to try, to fail, to learn, to try again. Think about these phrases. A boy is competitive, a girl is intense. A boy is confident, a girl is arrogant. A boy is passionate, a girl is emotional. A boy is a leader, a girl is bossy. These labels matter because girls notice and they quickly learn there are consequences for standing out, consequences for speaking up, consequences for being too visible. So many begin shrinking themselves, not because they aren't capable, but because they don't want the negative labels that sometimes come with confidence. One of the most damaging messages girls hear in sports is, the boys are better. Maybe not exactly those words, but versions of it. The boys are stronger. The boys are faster. The boys are naturally more aggressive. Even when people don't mean harm, those comparisons send a message. The message isn't, here's how to improve. The message becomes, you're already behind. And when girls hear that repeatedly, they stop focusing on growth and they start focusing on deficiency. And eventually, girls begin measuring themselves against a standard they were never supposed to become. The goal of girls hockey isn't producing better boys. The goal is helping girls maximize their own potential. Growth accelerates when players feel capable, not when they feel inferior. Comparison steals attention from growth, and growth is where confidence is built. This might sound controversial, but most girls don't need another speech about confidence. They need environments that create it. Confidence grows when girls feel safe asking questions, feel safe making mistakes, feel safe trying things, feel safe failing, and feel safe being themselves. We often tell girls, believe in yourself, but confidence isn't built through motivational speeches. It's built through experiences, through repetition, through support, through belonging. So, what do girls actually need to hear? They don't need to hear, don't be so emotional. Instead, let's tell them, your emotions are information. They don't need to hear, don't be so aggressive. They need to hear, compete hard. And instead of saying, let's play it safe, let's try saying, trust yourself. And they most definitely don't need to hear, the boys are better. Instead, let's support them and tell them, here's where you're improving. And they don't need to hear, be more confident. Instead, let's encourage them to keep learning. Because confidence isn't something girls magically discover. It's something adults help build through the messages we repeat every day. Most importantly, girls don't need less challenge. They don't need lower standards. They don't need people telling them they're fragile. What they need is clear expectations, supportive coaching, opportunities to lead, permission to make mistakes, and environments that value growth. And perhaps most importantly, they need adults who recognize the difference between developing a player and developing a person. Because hockey ends someday, but confidence, leadership, resilience, those last a lifetime. The biggest challenge facing girls hockey isn't a lack of talent. It isn't a lack of ability. It isn't a lack of potential. It's that too many girls are still carrying messages that tell them to be smaller than they really are. Smaller voices, smaller risks, smaller dreams, smaller versions of themselves. But imagine what happens when those messages change. When girls hear, you belong here, your voice matters, your effort matters, your growth matters. You don't have to be perfect to take up space. Because when girls hear those messages often enough, they stop shrinking and start becoming exactly who they're capable of being. And that's bigger than hockey. Girls hockey has made incredible progress, but progress doesn't mean we're done. There are still messages we need to challenge, still environments we need to improve, still opportunities to create experiences where girls don't just learn hockey, they learn confidence, leadership, resilience, and self belief. Because the goal isn't simply to develop better hockey players, it's to help girls become exactly who they're capable of being. And when we get that right, the impact reaches far beyond the rink. If you're a coach, parent, hockey mom, or female athlete, I'd love to hear from you. What's one message you heard growing up in sports that you wish would disappear? Leave it in the comments. And if you believe girls deserve environments that help them grow, not shrink, subscribe to the Hockey Village. Because learning the game is important, but helping girls thrive in it matters even more.